Mike Sempervive here with you for the next hour talking about professional wrestling, which is something we do every single day here on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Tune in, iHeart, American Forces Radio, Cable Radio Network 2, sportsbyline.com, over-the-air affiliates, or maybe you're listening via podcast or video streaming on Twitch or YouTube. However you're joining us today, I'd just like to say thank you. Hopefully wherever you are, it's sunny outside. If not, hopefully it's sunny inside your mind. First Observer Live of 2025. Hope you had a happy New Year's Day. If you somehow avoided the news, congratulations. If it's somehow not cold where you are, also congratulations. The first cross-country cold snap of the season, and it sucks. It does. It's brutal here. But as always, we'll keep pushing, because that's what we do. A lot to get into today. Boss man Bryan Alvarez is on the road. He'll be back on this show tomorrow and tonight for subscribers at f4wonline.com with a brand new episode of the Bryan and Vinny Show. Stepping up, as always, the filthiest man you know, Filthy Tom Lawler, is going to be joining me after the break. But before he does, I'll let you know that the final episode of Monday Night Raw on the USA Network did its second best numbers of the football season, averaging 1.6 million viewers and drawing a .53 in the 18 to 49-year-old demo. Second only to the December 2nd show. Raw held up in the face of really strong NFL competition, almost surprisingly strong, between Detroit and San Francisco. Over 22 million viewers between ABC and ESPN for that game. One of their largest in the last 15 years or so. So, at the end of the day, my resolution to you is this. This is the last time you're ever going to have to hear Raw ratings on this show. You know how most resolutions go, though? But if it gets broken, it won't be because of me. Filthy coming up. AEW Dynamite. A lot happened on that show last night. Very eventful show. Plus, we got 2 Tokyo Dome shows this weekend. And we'll find out what Filthy did for New Year's Eve. We'll be back. Wrestling Observer Live.
We did, in fact, by popular demand, watch Ready to Rumble.
The champion is some fat loser.
Yeah, he's a completely talentless, no athletic ability, can't wrestle, broke bum that walked out on his wife and kid.
But he was
he's
over.
The world champion.
He
and
was.
In the movie, the
well, yeah, but
storyline
that's a microcosm of wrestling, sadly.
Yes.
He feels so bad about drinking this entire slushy that cost $1.26, and he sticks his finger in his asshole and walks up to the clerk.
Lance is dying. How could the movie be so bad?
I'm not going to fault the man for that, of all the things in the movie.
I thought for sure you were going to say you'd done this before.
There's a reason I'm not going to fault the man for that.
I just think with all the porta potties and farting in this, that I think Vince McMahon was a secret producer on this film. Had to have been.
So then we get the Shermanator. He's playing a WCW arcade game. He uses some internet sleuthing to find the personal information of Jimmy King.
He's searching the internet. Can find out anything on here. This movie was so antiquated. Every Nitro Girl is in a Nitro Girl outfit, except for this girl. They had her dance in something totally different.
Brian, like the captain.
So we're so stupid. I got it.
Captain
yes,
Stavin?
If you're watching this film, you're that stupid. I'm sorry.
But I was also insulted by the fact they hired Michael Buffer to announce the Royal Bash, the fake-ass Royal Bash.
$24 million budget.
Wow.
And probably $500,000 of that went to Michael Buffer. It made 12. You know, we should mention, this cage match is the triple-decker Cage of Doom. Everybody buried it. It was horrible. Everybody hated it. And so they decided to make a movie. And what is the final battle? It's another goddamn triple-decker cage match. This would be like in 2010 if like TNA made a movie and the final match was a reverse battle royal.
They throw powder in someone's face, DDP's I think, or somebody's, and the dude just looks at it and goes, "It doesn't work." It's like, of course, because wrestling's fake and stupid.
Should we just end it there? What a soundbite. There has never been a movie I have watched in my entire life which has made me hate myself more.
Wow.
I'm ashamed that I'm even in the place at 41 years old where I would end up reviewing this movie for money. I would have thought I would have made it out of here by now. You know what I mean? I'm done.
Well, everyone, hopefully we can do this again someday. Instead of suffering through the YouTube chat, click like and subscribe.
Welcome back to the show. Mike Sempervive and Filthy Tom Lawler here with you. Jim Valley's here with you on Saturdays starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and Andrew Zarian is back with you starting this Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'd also love it if you made the wrestling news part of your day. You can find it wherever you find your favorite podcasts, or head on over to WrestlingNews.com and at WrestlingNewsAV on X and Facebook. Every single day of the year, everything you need to know to get your day started, get you up to date, or get you to your favorite long-form review pod like Wrestling Observer Radio. There's a new one of those up on the site right now with Dave and Bryan talking all about last night's Dynamite, NXT, and a variety of other things. I see from the video that Filthy Tom Lawler has not gotten that aspect of him being here quite sewn up and fixed yet. But, Filthy, are you still there on the audio?
Yeah, don't speak too soon because I should be back up on video.
Jumping right in there.
On cue. Look at that. Ready to go, baby. What a week in wrestling, huh?
A
lot of ends, a lot of firsts, a lot of changes. Maybe some more changes coming up in the next few days and next week. There's a lot going on in the world of wrestling.
I think the biggest news that has taken place over the last couple of days has got to be Adam Copeland changing his name to Cope. And does that mean you are going to change your name to Lol?
Absolutely not. I was baffled when they put up the graphic on the screen last night, and then I have seen the video of the former Adam Copeland talking about how when you see it on the marquee, you know, the rated R superstar Adam Copeland versus Mox doesn't sound as good as Cope versus Mox. And I thought to myself, oh, what's wrong with Copeland versus Moxley? You know, I'd have to go back and look, but I bet you on the marquee it said Gotch versus Hackenschmidt.
It did.
Did it say Gotch versus Hack?
Well, no.
No, it didn't. So I just think it's it's weird, but hey, these guys are the household name superstar wrestlers, so you know they know something about their own careers. So hey, Cope is now at the top of the card. The rated R superstar Cope, I believe.
Is this going to be classic Cope, you believe, in the feud with Jon Moxley, or is it going to be new Cope?
I'm just trying to cope with all the puns that are going to come off of this now. But regardless, you know, the guy comes off like a big star every time you see him on TV. Those fans in Asheville were happy to have him back. And it's somebody else now at the top of the card for Jon Moxley to feud with as he tries to mold AEW in the name of his vision.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a mission statement, does he? That's the biggest thing. Now, I will say this. AEW's got a nice, fresh start. You got Samoa Joe coming back at some point. You got Kenny Omega coming back now. The Young Bucks are obviously going to be coming back as well. You have new feuds starting. For the most part, everything is pretty much a clean slate with the exception of the Death Riders. For regardless of what anybody thinks about the feud, it is the biggest thing in the company. It is going to be the biggest shadow looming over the company. And one of the problems that I thought they had is it is operating in its own little universe, and there are too many of those going on. But it does seem like now, because Moxley's got the AEW title and you have so many people wanting the AEW title, that seems to be how they are going to draw everybody into this. And I'm not judging it at all, but I think that's how they're doing it, and I think that's a good idea. We'll see how it all plays itself out, but with so many guys wanting to go after the title and Moxley having that title, it actually gives some gravity to this group as to why people would want to fight with them at all, as opposed to just staying in their own little universe like they have been doing, at least in storyline.
Yeah, it seems like almost everybody made it a point on the show that they wanted gold, but specifically that AEW world title. MJF made a light of it in his promo. The opening match and everything involving Jay White, the backstage, I believe, and the on screen, those are based around him wanting the title. MJF talked about wanting the title. Hangman and Orange Cassidy are contenders for the title. Jeff Jarrett came out, cut a promo, and he talked about wanting gold, and I thought he was going to settle there. But no, he said he wanted the biggest belt that AEW has. He wanted the world title. So, as you said, everything seems to revolve around that, and I think that is a great way to go. That is that's what Gotch and Hackenschmidt were fighting for back in the day, the rights to be the world champion.
Now, be honest, though. Mox and Cope in big, bold letters on a poster with their faces on it. I mean, that doesn't give you any big fight feel at all? You know, like how that would look, at least graphically, up on the poster?
It makes no difference to me, whether it's Cope versus Mox or Copeland versus Moxley. They can do whatever they want. Whatever makes them happy.
You know, what makes me happy is the fact we can do whatever we want because Brian's not here on the show today. So I got to ask you, because it came up last night, and I'm drawing it into you. I'm drawing you into this way. One thing brought up on Wrestling Observer Radio last night was Dave mentioning out of nowhere that Takashi Sugiura, way back in 2004, defeated Giant Silva in an MMA fight at Pride Bushido 4. That's where that fight took place. Tom, New Year's Eve this year had a bunch of names on it on the Rising show that I had never heard of before. I am unfamiliar with many of these people. I've been out of the loop for a while. But two things. Number one, your memories of the epic Takashi Sugiura Giant Silva fight. And also, how was this year's complete freak show that is Rising?
Well, if I remember correctly, and I probably don't, Segura shot a takedown, I believe a single leg, dragged Segura down, I believe may have kneed and soccer kicked him in the head, and eventually got the TKO win. And my guess is 3 minutes and 39 seconds, but you can go ahead and look because that's probably way off. My memories of this year's New Year's Eve, what a great show. There's nothing, I tell you, nothing like New Year's Eve MMA from Japan. And that's coming from somebody who has never gotten to experience it live. So I can only imagine the excitement, the fervor in that arena. You mentioned not knowing a lot of the names. Well, the good thing about Rising is that when you watch it, there's storylines. There's people who have been on reality TV shows fighting, spending $14,000 on tickets to impress their girlfriend and their family, and then getting beaten up.
Excuse me?
Yes, that's correct. You have fighters whose muse is their now ex-wife, who they are subservient to, going out there in front of her as she screams and moans ringside and getting beaten up. There was a series of fights on the undercard between the Breaking Down promotion and a stable of fighters, Black Rose, a five match series. So up and down the card, there are great storylines that you can watch, and there are great fighters as well. Kyoji Horiguchi, who has been one of the preeminent top flyweights of the past decade in MMA. The main event was won by Kleber Kyoke, beating Chihiro Suzuki, one of the great fighters at 25 years old, sporting a now 13-4 record, former champion Arisen. So that's somebody you'll hear about for years to come. And hopefully I'll be here for years to come on January 3rd talking about these shows with you, Mike.
Filthy, one day we're going over to Japan, and I'll be there in your corner when Bob Sapp finally gets out of his hiding spot and takes the challenge and fights you. We'll be back. Wrestling Observer Live.
No fish could swim this far upshore. Yeah.
Shoulders ran like the wind, but he could find no peace.
On the show, Mike Sempervive and Filthy Tom Lawler here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. Filthy, if we can't get Bob Sapp to fight you, can we at least get the Neeson Cup of Noodles to fight you? I can't believe that the Cup of Noodles has not had a fight yet on the show.
We need to get the Cup of Noodles to maybe defend the Super Hulk title against Kinnikuman. Didn't Ultimate Muscle have a fight one time?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so that would be one hell of a matchup there. Cup of Noodles versus Ultimate Muscle.
Oh, my. That's one thing I do miss about, like, covering Japan as far as MMA goes, because obviously do it wrestling-wise for the site. Adam and I, by the way, Adam Summers and I, Big Audio Nightmare, new one of those being recorded right after this show wraps up. But I do miss all the wackiness of Japan when it comes to MMA and advertising and all that stuff. Do you remember Mark Coleman in a crown riding a Dole banana?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. One of the all-time great advertisements in MMA history. Unfortunately, this year, no Takada in a thong, banging a gong
Mawashi,
to open the show.
Mawashi.
But still, plenty of entertainment over 12 hours. And, I mean, there's been so much wrestling.
12 hours. I don't know if you said that during the break or actually on the show or not, but, like, the show was actually 12 hours long.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess how else do you fit in 36 fights?
I don't know. Pack in a few lippers of Zin and get ready to watch 36 fights on New Year's Eve. That's what I've been doing for years and years. So.
You're the one who started all this with the Zins. Do you feel bad about the fact that there's so many teenagers around right now packing Zins because of Filthy Tom? Yeah.
I started it. I didn't
You've
start
doing
anything.
it for years, huh?
Nah.
Did you move from Skull Bandits over to those?
I'm a real Zinfidel.
All right, AEW Dynamite is trying to expand to a new audience. At least WBD and them are hoping that they do because they started on Max. And honestly, if producer Dom is around right now, I want to get him to jump in here because he is the only person I know who watched the show on Max. And not only that, he's on the West Coast, so he got to see it at a fresh new time.
Yeah, so the only reason I did watch it on Max was because as I was looking through their catalog and what was up on Max, I saw that the show started at 5 p.m. Pacific, and I'm not some old guy. I can handle staying up till 10, but I got to get up early to get here. I'd rather not, and I'd rather have some time. So I usually watch Dynamite on Thursdays, but when I found out it was going to be on at 5 o'clock, it clicked in my head. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. They're going to live stream this East Coast feed, so now I might have to start watching it more frequently via the stream at 5 o'clock Pacific.
Filthy? Now, were you in on that, or was that just interfering way too much with the rising time?
Well, Mike, you opened that up by saying that Dom was the one person that you knew that watched it via HBO Max.
Yep.
Well, that's fake news because now you know two. Because
Get
I
outta
also
here.
watched it via HBO Max. Yes. I made the conscious decision a couple months ago to get rid of Hulu Live TV because of the price increase. And then, my wife really likes American football for some reason. And we got a couple month deal on YouTube TV just to catch the Super Bowl. But that'll be gone early February, and I do not plan on re-upping on any of those services. However, one that we are not going to get rid of is Max, HBO Max, as I like to call it, because, that's how we should be referring to it as. But anyways, that's a service that we're going to keep forever, or at least for the foreseeable future. And watching it last night, watching AEW Dynamite on there was a treat. I would say no issues whatsoever. I thought it was a great experience.
Now, silly question to both of you then. Did they have any differences in commercials? Did they just run the commercials that usually air on TBS and TNT? Or were there times where there was just blank spaces or, just some sort of graphic over where a commercial would be? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll start. So I think for the most part, the commercials were kind of what you would see while you were streaming and watching stuff, whether it be Max or Hulu. There were some generic national, like Swiffer commercials or whatever. I'll say I don't know what the workaround would be, but the oh yeah, don't miss the action, we'll be right back normally would be the toss to picture-in-picture, and instead you would get ads. The only ever time there was regularly a graphic also was like, oh hey, yeah, your content's coming back in just one moment, hang tight. But other than that, it was a pretty normal viewing experience.
Filthy. Now, are you going to continue to... Now, I guess you have to watch it on... By the way, your wife is not going to let you get rid of YouTube TV. Like, that's the only way you can order the NFL Sunday Ticket package. And why were you not a good husband if she loves the American football? Why did you not buy that for her?
Mike, change the subject.
Can't. Notre Dame and Georgia's about to come on. I'm obsessed with American football, but... I will change the subject just slightly to a different channel. True TV, which is also going to be airing AEW Dynamite beginning on Friday nights at 10 p.m. because True TV is changing their format, as a lot of people we talked about on this show and as Dave has talked about on Wrestling Observer Radio. They are changing their content. So in the afternoons or in the evenings and all night long, it is going to be TNT Sports. I like this. Now, when it came to WWE, they did this with SmackDown. They put it on FS1. Raw has been on, I think it was with Telemundo or Univision, whichever one NBC owns. They've put it on different channels as well, too. I like this idea because the idea of putting Ring of Honor on True TV, it's not like it's a bad thing or it's a great thing for Ring of Honor, but I think they actually get more mileage. Tony Khan gets more mileage out of having the ability for people to watch True TV and people stumbling into it or people who miss it for whatever reason. I like the idea of their main show having the possibility for eyeballs on a Friday night. Whether people watch it or not, we'll have to find out and see if it's beneficial at all. But on the surface, on paper, I like the idea.
Yeah, I don't see how it could be a downside whatsoever, even if somebody's just flipping through the channels on whatever ancient cable service that they still have, and they come across it and it stays on and they, watch a little bit more of the programming. I don't see any downside to this. Looking at TNT Sports and their portfolio here, I mean, they have the NHL, March Madness, some baseball, NASCAR,
They
NBA.
had the first college football playoff games. They spent money on that and got those from ESPN the first round.
USA Soccer, I believe. All Elite Wrestling. But, there's still a lot of time and airtime to be filled. So, maybe Ring of Honor gets on there. Hopefully, this Dynamite replay turns into something more. And it gives Ring of Honor kind of a foothold, its own identity, rather than just being tacked on to the end of all these AEW tapings.
The multi-year TV rights deal took effect on Wednesday. That's why this programming is making its way to Max, the deal between AEW and WBD. The first 12 episodes of Dynamite from October through December of 2019 are available up there right now, in addition to 17 total consecutive episodes of Dynamite, Collision, and Rampage from October 30th of this year through December 21st, as well as the company's first 5 pay-per-views from 2019, starting with Double or Nothing through Full Gear. It's unknown whether the schedule for future episodes is being added, other than on there being a rolling basis on when they're going to be adding these, if I can talk. AEW has more than 700 total hours of content now that is expected to be made available at some point down the line. So a lot of stuff there. And again, this is good for podcasters who want to go back and want context. Let's go back to the very beginning and they can review all of the shows. I know Bryan is waiting on doing that. As far as the navigation goes, because I haven't had Max in a while and I didn't really mess with a whole lot that was on there. As far as the navigation on all of this stuff, is it easily accessible? Do you have to go through like 3 rabbit holes to find AEW, or do they make it easy on you?
I mean, AEW showed right up on my main page when I turned the app on. I haven't gone through and looked at the archives because I hate to say it, but there's just so much wrestling and so much good wrestling going on throughout the world and even in AEW that I don't know when I would have the time to go back and look at these things unless I'm being paid to do it like a professional wrestling podcaster does. So I haven't gone back and done that, Mike. You know, I think that's one of the downfalls, if there is one, to having so many great matches is I know I'm going to see some more great matches this week from AEW.
But will you see them from Noah? Omos, one half of your new GHC Tag Team Champions. We'll mention that as well as getting an AEW Dynamite from last night when we get back from break. Wrestling Observer Live.
Because I've always known from day one, you are world championship caliber. I knew from the very beginning, yeah, you had to come up some, and you've come up a ton in the last few years. But I knew that you would someday become the world heavyweight champion. Sometime in 2025, I am predicting this is the future AEW world champion right here. And who knows, maybe you'll be a world champion at Globe Life Stadium 2025 at All In. And you know, I've been known to, even though I'm retired now, show up. So the only thing that I can say, no more matches, but my eyes will be watching for sure. And as far as me coming here to All In next July, all I can say is the only thing for sure about Sting is nothing's for sure.
That's right.
Wait a minute.
Thank you, Texas.
Wait a minute. Do you mean one more match? You mean you're gonna jump off the balcony onto the table?
Stop it, Tony. Stop it.
There was one time he jumped off the. I think it was when we were in Orlando, and he jumped off through a table. I went, "What the hell are you doing?" He said, "That one's for you." I said, "Okay, thank you very much."
Everybody keeps saying, "Why do you make Sting do this?" I'm like, you can't call it peer pressure. He's like 30 years older. That was all his idea. That was all. I never told him to jump off a balcony. That's all him.
Well, it wasn't new to me either. You remember Sid Vicious, you know? 6'10", press me over his head, throw me out of the ring and to land on the floor or land on a table. I mean, it's not new to me. Come on, I've been falling through stuff for a long time.
Everybody was like, Sting's run, he's going so crazy in AEW, he's doing the craziest stuff. It's all Darby's fault. I say no, I didn't know.
Well, it was for you fans, I promise you that.
The show, Mike Sempervive and Filthy Tom Lawler here with you. Wrestling Observer Live. Got AEW Dynamite Fight for the Fallen from Asheville, North Carolina to get into. But, Tom, you're not going to be doing a show before these events in Japan take place. Any thoughts on any of the show? I mean, Stardom, All Japan, Noah have had shows in the last couple days. We have the 2 Tokyo Dome shows that are going to be coming up on the 4th and the 5th. One for New Japan proper, the other AEW in conjunction with New Japan and Rev Pro and CMLL and all that. Any thoughts on any of that?
To be honest, Mike, I'm most excited for Wrestle Dynasty because of the time of the show, because I will get to watch it at 8 p.m. Pacific, I believe, which is a rare treat for a show coming from Japan. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to. I'm sure there's going to be great wrestling top to bottom. If you look at both of the shows, Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty, there has been some talk about, maybe having a weak main event. Maybe Shota Umino is not ready for that position, but that card top to bottom is going to be phenomenal. We're going to have, all the title matches, right? Then you have Naito versus Hiromu for the only time you will ever see it. There's some tables, ladders, and desks match, I believe, between all the junior heavyweight tag teams. And with the Catch 22 and the Jet Setters and the Bullet Club and whatever other team is in there, TMDK, that's going to be phenomenal for however long they get. And I could say that about that entire card, up top to bottom. But hey, the next day I'll get to watch a load of wrestling as I catch up on that, and then get to watch Wrestle Dynasty live.
I wonder if they'll hype it up more than they did last night. I was a little surprised that Mercedes Moné was really the only one to kind of reference it and punch the point home that pay-per-view is going to be coming up. And granted, in the grand scheme of things, this show is not as big as their show coming up in Australia in February. Certainly not as big as what's going to be taking place in Los Angeles in March. But were you surprised at all that they didn't kind of jam that point home? Or do you think it doesn't really matter? The people that want to order that show kind of know it already, and there's people they want to see, and we're going to focus on this other stuff.
I'm less surprised by the lack of promotion from AEW regarding the event as I am surprised at the lack of angles done leading up to the event. We have a situation in which it's possible that either Claudio or Ricochet are challenging for the IWGP title, and there has not been much in the way of angles in that direction. Of course, there's been a long running angle with Umino and Claudio because of Mox and his association with Shooter, but they never did an attack. There's nothing like that. The same thing goes with Ricochet and Sabre, except for that one time where Ricochet showed up and laid him out. There hasn't been anything else done. I think that is what surprises me. I think that's even more so what's going to hurt that show rather than it not being promoted on American TV. And I don't know how the Japanese fans view this show coming up. That's what's going to be interesting to me, because it seems almost like it's just another show tacked on to Wrestle Kingdom rather than its own important situation.
The whole thing seems like it's going to have good matches on it, but it seems lukewarm on both sides as far as an event goes. Again, doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad event or poor event, any of that sort of stuff. It just feels like...
I'm sure it's going to be awesome, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, but I think you probably have to be really invested. What we've seen with Forbidden Door is there are AEW fans that don't have an interest in Japanese wrestling, or don't have as much of an interest in Japanese wrestling as they do what takes place in AEW. So it kind of, I don't want to say it falls on deaf ears or anything like that, but they obviously don't have the same interest in that show as they do in others. But might as well get into the show. The Pointer Sisters sang "I'm So Excited," which was a interesting choice for a new show theme. They intermingled in the opening video shots of celebrities who have appeared on AEW TV over the years, including Shaquille O'Neal and Snoop and guys like that. Okada was arriving as Excalibur ran down the card for the night. And then we got a video package from after World's End, which featured Jon Moxley and the Death Riders cutting a promo. He says he's taken bullet after bullet for this company, and he'll literally destroy the AEW title belt before he allows anybody else to have it. Nobody's got authority over him. He is the king. And then that line would play into MJF's promo later on in the show where MJF said he was going after the title, that he's never lost, by the way, and what's a king to a god? Moxley closed by telling Copeland that he's just the loudest guy in the room. Then we had FTR and Copeland give their retort. He was all fired up, pacing around, Adam Copeland was, or should I say Cope, and said at World's End he saw fear in Moxley's eyes and that tonight he was going to have some fun. First match, Hangman Adam Page against Orange Cassidy. I thought it was a good opener. Cassidy delivered 3 orange punches on Page, went for a 4th, but Page caught him with a buckshot lariat, got the pin after it was over. Page delivered the Deadeye, held on to it, got back up again, squatted back up, hit it again. Referees and Christopher Daniels ran in, started yelling at Page, who then beat on him for a little bit before leaving. After that, we got a Jay White promo promising to become the number 1 contender by winning the Gauntlet, and also had a message for Wheeler Yuta that he's going to be coming after him for costing him a shot at the AEW title. Hangman Adam Page still a heel, still going nuts right now, and I think people want to cheer him. Any thoughts on him continuing on in this maniacal character that he's in?
Yeah, I mean, I think what he's doing is he should remain on the heel side. I don't think that he should go back. I think there's too much movement back and forth between guys being heels and faces in AEW generally. And I like the more vicious version of Adam Page. Let the fans cheer him a little bit. You know, it's not unlike, I mean, we make so many parallels with Darby Allin and Sting, right, in this whole situation, this whole angle. But the fans, like, it's also the same thing with Adam Page. You know what I mean? There was an element of the Sting character that people thought he was going to turn out to be a heel, if you remember. And then they had the whole deal with the fake Sting. So I feel, a similar kind of underground swell for him, because he's certainly not a traditional babyface, and nor should he be.
Orange Cassidy, obviously his finisher was completely destroyed by hitting it 3 times and then still having Page hit him with a buckshot lariat for the pin. I like that idea. I've been a proponent of, I wasn't against him in the main title picture. Now that I've seen it, okay, cool. It's time for him to go away for a bit and come back refreshed, come back with some new something, I think, when it comes to Orange Cassidy. What do you think with him?
Yeah, I agree. Whatever happened to the conglomeration is, I guess, no longer. So that didn't work out. And, it may be a case in which you bring him off TV, take him off TV for not too long, a month, a couple weeks, and the fans will be even more behind him when he comes back. But yeah, he needs something, or at least to get out of this title picture and into another program for sure.
The Hurt Business absolutely destroyed the Acclaimed. MVP joined commentary where he was asked about Caster getting one of his business cards. P said that Caster waited too long to make a decision, and frankly, when he asked Shelton and Lashley about him coming on board, they just said flat out they didn't want him. Caster wanted to start the match, so Bowens let him. He got his butt kicked the entire time he was in. Finally gave the hot tag to Bowens, who mounted some offense. Caster then blind tagged himself in, got beat up again. 4 released German suplexes by Shelton, followed by Lashley hitting a spear, a choke slam, and then the Hurt Lock for the submission in just a couple of minutes. Bowens dropped off the ring apron when all this was going on, started walking to the back and saying that Max got what he deserved. So that is not over with. I do like Shelton Benjamin, though, looking strong and just killing people. That's what he should have been doing from Jump Street here. Swerve Strickland then cut a promo about being in the Casino Gauntlet match, said he's never been in one before. When he asked Alex Marvez if he knew that fact, this is the best Marvez has ever been on AEW TV. Marvez just goes, yes, it's because you were the champion. Swerve smiles and says that's right, and then walks off. I like that. Nobody seems to like this next match. Julia Hart defeated Jamie Hayter. The finish was Julia grabbing one of her arrows. Aubrey Edwards took it away from her. As she was distracted, Hart spit black mist into Hayter's eyes and got the pin. People have hammered this match. It did feel like an NXT women's match at times, which I know can be an insult. There were moments where Julia just looked like she was moving slow and they didn't have good timing with each other, and the crowd on top of it was not hot for it at all either, and in hindsight didn't have to go 10 minutes. With all that said, I got to shoot him some bail because I don't think it's as bad as everybody has said it has been. Julia has not had a match since April, and it's not like they've worked with each other before, so this just seems to be just the start of this feud. I mean, yes, the match was not great, but I don't know. Do you want to see this end and get them away from it, or do you have any issue with this?
My biggest issue, to be honest, was all around the finish. I mean, the match is what it was, but Julia Hart spits this black mist, which we kind of couldn't see on the camera. It was blinded by the angle that they did it at. There's black mist on the ground right near Aubrey Edwards. And then after the match, I watched Aubrey Edwards went over. Jamie Hayter's on the floor, like writhing in pain, screaming as she has this mist in her eyes. And Aubrey Edwards went over and checked on her and then just left. And it's like, do you think she applied that stuff to herself? You know what I mean? Was it her makeup running? That was the only issue I had. I was like, come on. You got to be able to spot this as a ref. But that obviously was not the finish.
I don't know. In wrestling, it's one of those things like wrestler paralysis when the music hits and you guys can't leave the ring. I mean, when did they ever stop a match because Muta or Kabuki blew mist in somebody's eyes, stop the count and say, no, this is unacceptable? You can't prove, the referee cannot prove without instant replay that she was the one who spit the mist into her eyes. Maybe she did rub it into her own eyes. Look at what Eddie Guerrero would do. Never know what could happen, Tom. I'll keep moving on.
Yeah, stop it. I'm going to give you a red card.
Hey, you know what? Yeah, take 10% of my purse away. Give me 2 like Rulon Gardner, and I'm never coming back to this country. Broderick Strong, Jay White, Swerve Strickland, Casino Gauntlet, number 1 spot. This is to get the number 1 spot in the Casino Gauntlet coming up. They all worked, I think, real well together. The most notable part of the match, though, was, of course, when Swerve went outside the ring to get to Jay White. He hit his barrier kick on White in the face, and then in the background, behind Swerve, you see Ricochet walking in a blue suit. He has a pair of scissors with him. He grabs Swerve by the head and starts pounding him in the head with the scissors. He just stares at him as the match continues on. Strong got White, threw him in the ring. White turned him around, hit the switchblade, got the win, so he's the number 1 contender, but heavy heat afterwards. Ricochet hopped the rail, continued to jab him in the head with the scissors, laid out Nano with a chair, headbutted Swerve, so blood is all over Ricochet's face as well. Finally, after he was killing him, Strong, O'Reilly, and Cole ran out and chased Ricochet off, but a geek no more when it comes to Ricochet.
Hey, make fun of a guy for being bald long enough. And see what he does with those shears.
We'll talk about the rest of the show when we get back from break. Wrestling Observer Live. Back on the show, Mike Sempervive and Filthy Tom Lawler here to put a bow on this thing. But before we do, a couple more things to get into. Jeff Jarrett came down to the ring to make his announcement. Talked about his family's legacy in professional wrestling going back to 1946. Talks about taking high risks and achieving high rewards. He then picks up his boots that Karen had given him earlier on. Said, I had to ask myself, should the last outlaw ride off into the sunset? And after a long pause, the answer is hell no. He wants one more ride. He signed his very last talent contract. He wants to be AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Handicap match powerhouse. Hobbs killed 2 geeks. And then we got after a graphic for the late Sweet Daddy Siki, the 6-man tag team match main event. Edge, Cope. Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood defeat Claudio, John Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta. Yuta takes the fall again for his team. Shatter Machine followed by a spear. What'd you think about the main event?
I thought it was good action. I wish they would have caught the initial kind of spear through the barricade that Cope did to Mox, because that was a cool spot. But they got it on the replay. And, I thought the match is kind of what it should be on a almost premiere in a lot of ways. The big first show on HBO was reminiscent of the AEW party style of matches, I thought. A lot of, especially the finish where everybody's beating up some poor geek nerd who had to cheat to beat me a few years ago. So I enjoyed watching it. I thought it was a good show, really good show. The new production elements I liked. I thought the arena looked good, even though there's less people. It came off better on TV. And a good first start to AEW on HBO Max.
A fine, fresh start to the year. Not as good as the fresh start that we had here, of course, because it was Filthy Tom Lawler and I. Bryan Alvarez will be back on the show tomorrow. I don't know if I will be or not. I know Filthy's not going to be, and neither will producer Dom. He's off. But producer John will be here because he works every single day of the week. Dom, take notes. Talk to y'all again after a while.